Welcome to the Warband, a World of Warcraft podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Swaglock, and with me today is my co-host, Chicken. Chicken, how are you doing?
Pretty good. I don't like that you call me a co-host, though. I feel like I'm just as big on... Well, okay.
We can call you the main host. You want to be main host?
No, you're fine. What?
Main host, like main host Supreme Chicken. Does that work?
So, yeah.
Kentucky Fried main host Supreme Chicken?
Yeah, I'm looking for like Overlord. That just feels better to me.
Speaking of which, we also have a guest today on the podcast, a good friend of ours, Overbugg, who is another fellow WoW player who loves to talk about WoW. I know him personally in real life, and so we just find ourselves getting distracted talking about the game so much, and I wanted to have him on the podcast to do more of that. So welcome to the podcast, Overbugg.
Thanks, man. Excited to be on. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. What have you guys? I'll ask Chicken first. Give Overbugg a second to think about it. But Chicken, what have you been up to this week in WoW or just real life?
Yeah, so obviously still on that grind, but yeah, I'd take a couple days off just with some life stuff. You get headaches and stuff. You don't want to play WoW. And
no, he took took those days off to play WoW. He took off work just to play WoW. Don't let him fool you.
I took off work to play WoW. No, I'd take some days off WoW. So I was able to get the weekly done for the delves, and then I think I ran like one dungeon, and I really didn't do much else in WoW.
No, I get that. Those weeks happen. Were you weren't raiding with us, right? I think you were too sick to raid this week.
No, I raided one day.
Okay,
I raided the day that we took down, we took down the princess.
Oh yeah, we did get princess down. I forgot. That wasn't too bad of a fight. Overbugg, what have you been up to this week, man?
Yeah, so I just re-rolled. Decided I didn't like Arcane. Re-rolled fully to Warrior. So I've just been going from 70 to 80 and then getting the full gear up, trying to get to 616 as fast as possible. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been focused on.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, man, I think because you generally, I think, push a little bit harder than maybe Chicken or I do content-wise. We're generally like heroic raiders who like dabble in Mythic, but you generally try to do Mythic like progression, correct?
Yeah, so I did a lot of Mythic progression at the beginning of Dragonflight. It depends on like how invested I can get into a guild. There's a lot that goes into like trying to like push for cutting edge. So yeah, I try to be pretty hardcore when I do play. I'm like teetering on going fully in this season. I definitely would like to
do it
if they don't nuke Warrior to the ground.
Yeah, man, Fury is they're trying to stay afloat. They're doing good, but Blizzard has their eyes on them for sure.
No, definitely. Unfortunately so.
Yeah. Now just so our maybe our listeners get a chance to know you a little bit as well. Overbugg, how did you get into World of Warcraft? I think we've talked about it before, but you've been playing for like a long time, right?
Yeah, so I started when I was like 6 in 2005.
Oh my God.
I started playing vanilla. Yeah, I started young. I played like a ton until until probably MOP, and then was pretty on and off because I going through school and stuff until maybe Shadowlands, and then I got really back into it in Dragonflight.
Wow.
But I've played pretty much every expo except for BFA.
Yeah, no, but that's not the worst one to miss. Not the worst one. Maybe trade BFA for WoG or for Warlords of Draenor.
That's definitely true. That one's the one I should have missed for sure. Decent raids, but
hot take.
Not much else.
Hot take here. Hot take. I think Warlords of Draenor would be an awesome like remix if they brought it back like they did Mists of Pandaria. Just because the schedule's okay, but it's just content to do, things to collect. A lot of people do remix just to level and level up alts, and I feel like WoD like excels at like a leveling experience. And I know that sounds weird, but I just think WoD would be actually like a pretty good remix event.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think WoD content was very good when it was there. There was just no content. I mean, it was like probably, I think it was the longest or the second longest content drought from end of expansion to expansion. So, and they cut a raid tier as well. So I think most people's complaints about WoD are more to do with like garrisons and lack of content than the quality.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Which is why I think remix would work. I'm trying to remember. I think the longest might have been end of Mists of Pandaria, which probably didn't help set up into WoG, right? People are already annoyed and frustrated. I keep saying WOG, like
Wog.
Word of Glory. I'm not a paladin. What am I doing? Warlords of Draenor, WOD. But I think Mists. I think Mists had the Siege of Orgrimmar raid, right? And that was like almost like a year and a half. I think that raid was live.
Yeah, I want to say 14 months or something like that. But that was a very high quality raid to end the expansion on.
Yeah, that was a good raid.
Very long one as well. Yeah.
Oh, that was a good one. You know what? Okay, I know this is like a random topic, but I like talking about old raids and things like that. Would you guys be opposed if for season 4 of an expansion, instead of just recycling the 3 raids from that expansion, Blizzard chose to bring back an older raid and retune it, maybe even change the mechanics on the fight, but just retune the dungeon, the existing dungeon or raid to be new content?
Yeah, I think I would prefer it. I think the old raids are they're very still like in the back of your mind. I think touching upon some, it depends on from where they did it. You know, if you pull something from Wrath, you'd have to change like everything. But if you pull something from BFA, you'd have to change like not so much. So it depends on where they pull it from, but it would definitely be interesting. I'd probably be down for it.
Yeah. I guess part of it too depends on like how much resources go into each part of designing a raid, right? Because I imagine the design of the physical raid, right, the space that you exist in, that's probably pretty extensive. I would imagine that the design of the enemies and whatnot is pretty extensive. I don't know what the design process though of the actual fight encounters is like. I don't know if that's maybe on the easier side of developing a raid or on the harder side of developing a raid. If it happens to be on the easier side, I would not complain if they just redid the mechanics on all the fights, but just kept the spaces and the models and the general themes the same, and just had us go back. I don't know. I just don't like recycling like the same 3 raids we just did. It's another reason why I think during season 4 I usually start to pull back a lot.
Yeah, I agree, man, for sure. I think it would really depend on like where they pulled from, right? Like how far back are you looking? I think if you pulled even from like Miss, it wouldn't be so bad as if you pulled from earlier.
Oh yeah.
And then obviously if you pulled from like Legion or BFA, like you could maybe not even like touch the mechanics and just tune it, and it would still be just as challenging because like nobody remembers those raids, right?
No.
So
And they're very modern. They're like there's something I think when we talk about classic, right? Classics, they're touching upon Mists, which I think they're going to do Mists. But once you go past Mists, right, there's not enough excitement for WOD, so I just don't think they could get away with doing WOD. And you can't really go past WOD because everything after WOD really feels super modern, right? Like once you add M+ into the mix, it's just modern WoW, and so it really feels that way. But speaking of where WoW is currently and talking about that, Chicken, you had brought up earlier today when we were talking just about you feeling like the game's kind of in the stale spot and having thoughts on what would make WoW maybe more interesting or engaging.
Yeah, so not necessarily what to do to make WoW more interesting, engaging. I just like going back to kind of what I did this week. You know, I really only pushed I pushed 2 keys. I don't know. I just didn't want to. Like it's not. Don't get me wrong. I really love WoW. I really do. It's a fun game. Great game. It's just I don't know. I think I get lost in the dungeon experience, right? It's the same experience every season, literally all the time, right? Like you're constantly just playing dungeons, doing the same dungeons for what, like 16 weeks? And I don't know if it's just finally catching up to me. I don't know. I hope not, because, you know, I already got like game time till like a year from now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Do they get you with the mounts and whatnot?
Yeah. So, you know what? Does that resonate?
I think for me, I took a pretty hard break during season 4 of Dragonflight. I mean, I was still playing, but like I had no ambitions or goals during season 4 of Dragonflight. I was just like, when I want to log in, I'll log in. If I want to do something, I'll do something. Admittedly, I probably played like just as much Fortnite that season as I did WoW. And most of the time, and you know, near the end of season 4, I was literally just doing beta testing all the time. I wasn't even in Dragonflight. So I got a good little break in there from dungeons where it wasn't a priority, and we really weren't raiding much, if at all, that whole season. So yeah, I'm in the point where I think I'm feeling like anticipatory and excited and just like moving forward with dungeons. They are difficult, but I think we'll talk about that later. And that's kind of been my reservation for doing them, is that it's not as rewarding feeling as maybe it was before. But if what would like if you're talking about, and maybe you have thoughts on it, right? But what would it look like to maybe create something that feels engaging for you, that's not just Mythic Plus or Raid?
Yeah, and part of that I think is just like my mentality with economy right now, because when I get bored, it's like I enjoy professions for the most part, and I enjoy that aspect of WoW. But now I think the economy is just like, it's like I could spend a ton of money on like just buying mats on the auction house, or I could go mine a bunch, and then it's like, oh, but then I could sell these mats for a ton of money on the auction house.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm just caught in like such a weird spot with that as well. So it's not that I don't want to do professions. It's like I'm just trying to make like a ton of gold right now, as much as I can.
Which also means that you can't enjoy the profession itself, right? Like you're purely just making gold. Which, and for some people, I think that's why they would do the professions. I'm doing it to make gold. Yeah. But also, it's a fun gameplay mechanic that exists, and so
it is.
It does rob you of that if it's just easier to farm mats and throw them on there than to actually work on your profession.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. But how they make it better, I'm not necessarily sure. Maybe I don't like this because I feel like it just adds more to it, but like maybe even more of a lesser dungeon rotation, maybe like. And like not even within like I'm talking within like the same season, because even I think the other thing that really is hard is now you don't even have the week split, right? Now you're pulling from the same dungeon. You no longer have like tyrannical and fortified. It's all the same grouping, and I think that kind of helped, because it was like, oh hey, like I really need last dungeon or last expansion. Oh, I really need a fortified Algathar. Yeah. So, I'm going to run that a bunch this week. And then next week it's like, oh, now I need a tyrannical Halls of Infusion, right? I think that aspect has also kind of hurt it a little bit, where it's like, oh, I can run every dungeon and I don't have to like do one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think incentive driven goals for content, I think, is where WoW is often at its strongest. Make fun of WoW players for all you want, but admittedly, we like to do stuff for loot, and if there's no loot involved or no reward,
oh my goodness,
no achievement or whatever, it does start to feel that way, right? Or we like to have a purpose for doing something, and so even if it's just raiding farming, right, just trying to get that KSM achievement and the mount that comes with it. And you're looking at it, you're like, well, I have to do every dungeon for 2 weeks. It does change it. However, at the same time, I like the current affix pool. So that is an interesting piece for me, where like I do think the affixes are better now generally than what we've had before. How in terms of the Xalatath ones, I like the Xalatath ones. I don't know if I like combining fortified and tyrannical, but I've barely had to deal with that. I barely have to touch that. I'm not quite there myself.
Oh yeah, no.
So I'm kind of, but I think Overbugg, you said you've been pushing dungeons trying to get 616. You said, right? What have you been experiencing?
Well, I still got a little ways to go because I did a full main swap, but yeah, I feel like they've taken like a number of steps back in terms of Mythic Plus. I feel like that's kind of why the game doesn't feel like right. It feels like they took a number of steps forward, introducing delves, and it feels really good to gear up, and there's like a lot there. But at the same time, like I think they like have completely stepped back on like some other aspects of the game, like class tuning and Mythic Plus, and specifically Mythic Plus. I mean, I do resonate with like the fort and tyrannical. I mean, I pretty much hated tyrannical, but it was still something to do, and that's interesting. I think they have some room to go with on Mythic Plus to kind of make it not feel so stale. Maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I also wonder, and I'd love to hear your opinions on these things, both of you. Right now, dungeons, like they don't feel great. Like they tune them. I think they tune them really hard. And on one hand, you're like, yeah, harder tuning. it's more of a challenge. Let's go. This is awesome. And then on the other hand, you're queuing up for a pug group. You get into a +5. People are treating it like it was a +5 from a year ago before everything was changed. And so they're running in. They don't know any mechanics on the fights. Everybody's just getting brutalized. You're just watching it, kind of like you're watching the room burn down, and you're like, why the heck is nobody panicking right now? What's going on? And so it does create an M+ experience that I will admit isn't always super exciting. Like, I love Mythic Plus. Dude, Mythic Plus is exciting to me. As I get older, it's harder for me to just like spam them on end, right? Like, I'll usually do a few and then I go do something else and I come back and maybe do a few later. But right now, it's just like, unless I'm running with a guild group, I'm not I used to be able to just pug them on end. And right now, pugging M+ just does not seem appealing. And I'm not even running high keys. I think I'm doing like 6s and 7s right now.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, let's be honest. It's blood. I mean, that's it. That's what it is for you, dude.
Blood DK. Here's the thing.
Dude, you're upset. Like, just say it. Just say
I mean, I'll say it. I've been saying forever. Tanks, well, not forever. I've been saying this season. Tanks suck. And I'll talk to people.
They do.
I'll talk to people and they'll be like, "Oh, well, what tank do you play?" I'm like, "Oh, I play Blood." And they're like, "Oh, well, Blood's pretty good. Like, Blood's not a bad tank at all. It's pretty good." And I'm like, "Yeah, but compared to Blood last season or Blood like 3 seasons ago,
dude.
You know." And the funny thing is, like, Blood feels so much worse, and yet it's ranked so much higher than it once was before. And so there's this disconnect, and it's across the board for all tanks. Blood is good right now compared to the average of tanks, right? It's on the above average side. But compared to like what tanks used to be, all tanks just suck right now. It's hard. It's hard. You know, I get hit and it takes out like 80% of my health, right? Like my health bounces down to like 20%, 10%. And then I'm like, oh, let me just Death Strike and start working my way back up again. And I Death Strike and it goes up from 10% to like maybe 25%. And I'm like, well, I guess it's the healer's job to heal me back up. And yeah, I mean, that, you know, when I say it out loud, it's like, yeah, of course the healer is supposed to be healing me. But as a tank, like, you don't feel like a tank when you're relying on someone else to keep you alive. That's kind of your job, right? Like, your job as a tank, the fun of being a tank is surviving, right? Like, it's kind of like when I get to play it like a roguelike and run in and pull 4 packs at once and use everything I have to like survive the fight and let the healer worry about keeping the DPS alive or dispelling things or handling some mechanics. That becomes a significantly more fun play experience than me just pulling 1 pack of mobs and then panicking the whole time because every one of them has like a tank buster.
Now, I want to comment on that in just a second. But for Bug, have you messed with Prot Warrior at all?
No, I pretty much am. Right now, it's pretty much only Fury for anything M+. I mean, I'm not the biggest like tank, perspective player. Yeah, I mean, I just think that like M+ right now, like it doesn't feel rewarding, right? Like I don't know. Like I feel like a tier 8 delve is significantly easier and is significantly more rewarding, and I think that is completely like counter to how it should be. Like I don't know, like it just doesn't. I don't feel like a point, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I don't know if you guys feel that way as well.
No, totally understand. It's hard. I think what's tough too is I look at people, right? Like I look at like delves, right, and doing delves, and I can go into a tier 8 delve, go get 616 slots in my vault, right? Get decent gear. Now, I will admit, like the trinkets and stuff from delves kind of stink, but that's fair. Whatever, that's okay. I think that Blizzard generally wants us to go to raid for trinkets. Sometimes dungeons will have like go to trinkets, but usually it's raid. But I'll go into a tier 8 delve, get a 616 slot in the vault, and then to go do something equivalent. What is it on dungeons? It's a +7, right?
Yeah.
For the vault?
Yeah.
For the 16, I think so. Yeah.
+7.
But with the delve, you also get like easy guaranteed gear as well, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's not
gear
like
at the end.
Yeah.
Now it's not maybe no guarantee that it's exactly the piece of gear that like you need or whatever, but just guarantee they're doing something. Especially if you get one of those maps,
right?
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
and way less time investment and effort investment.
Oh yeah,
I go into a delve, and again, I play Blood DK, so it's like cheating. It's cheating when you play Blood DK in a delve. I'm over here ranting about Blood DKs and dungeons, but Blood DKs and delves are fantastic.
Dude, they're so.
And I go into a dungeon, and I'm literally watching like Crunchyroll on my second monitor, and like just like smacking my rotation, just guessing. I'm not even paying attention. I'm just assuming I'm not dying. And then I go into a +7 dungeon, and again, that's just where my skill level is. And I'm like, especially with a pug group, if I'm going with a pug group, I'm like hard panicking the whole time, trying not to die, watching everybody, trying to make up for everybody else missing mechanics and stressing out. And I love dungeons, but then I sit back and go like, oh my gosh, why is it so much easier for me to go do a delve and get gear than it is for me to go do a dungeon?
Yeah, I think the balance of rewards is just really wrong, and I don't think they have to make delves harder, because like I don't think people would like that, especially for like the classes that we play, which are probably on the easier side.
Yeah.
But I think that they've taken out like the middle ground of Mythic Plus and like what it meant to just like, oh, I want to like run 10s and just chill and like get like have like a decent vault and like that's fine, right? But now it's like I don't know. Like I feel like 20s used to be puggable at the beginning of DF. Like when when that first happened, they were like totally puggable, and I don't think anything above 9 is like, or like 8 is like reasonably puggable without like completely hitting your life. Like
no way.
Especially because and there's massive jumps that go on, right? Like that 15 second change to the death timer is huge. Huge. And it all falls on your tank and your healer, right? Like that's not a punishment on, I mean, it's kind of a punishment on DPS if they're always dying. But like your tank screws up and wipes. Boom. That's like 1.5 minutes added to your timer because of one player's mistake.
Yeah, that's rough.
Right. And then what is it? Is it 12 where fortified and tyrannical both apply at the same time?
I thought it was 11.
Yeah, at some point it does like ridiculous scaling, right? Even beyond that. I think the highest key done is a 14, I think. I want to say.
Yeah.
Which is obviously crazy, but the scaling between like it's just unbelievable right now, the level of scaling.
Yeah. And I think and I don't know if M0 is necessarily making that good on ramp either right now for people.
No, it's a terrible ramp, I feel like, because the rewards are like worse than like just do tier 7 delves. I mean, like they try to limit how many delves you can do, but like I really don't see a point in doing M0. The gear is terrible, the vault is terrible.
Yeah.
There's just no point other than like maybe learning, but like why learn when you could do delves and raid log if you're in a casual enough situation, right?
Absolutely.
Which I think is fine if you want to do that. I just think that like if I want to push Mythic Plus reasonably to gear up, like I should be able to do it like every other expansion. But now it doesn't really feel like I can do that as easily or without like investing a lot more time.
No, it feels pretty bad. And on that point, like, dude, if delves gave good trinkets, then I feel like that's all I would ever run.
I know. I'm glad that they don't, honestly. like
they're terrible trinkets. But and so you brought up a good point, and I did want to touch on it, and maybe this is one of the reasons why you and I personally don't like the tank change.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to that where you're like, oh, I can just put on a delves and like throw on some Crunchyroll and like just jam out. But now, do you feel like you're in the place where even at like a 5-6 level, which would be like a heritage like 15, where like our eye level right now would easily be able to do a 15, like a heritage 15, right? Do you feel like it's not as laxed is what I'm trying to say? Like, do you feel like you, even for like a heritage 15, you are like basically like on edge, right?
Yeah. Well, I think yes, and also though, I for people listening, I want to clarify something too. Being challenged, right? Being challenged doesn't always make something better, and it doesn't always make it worse, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can challenge a player. So challenging a player is, it's only beneficial if you challenge them the right way. And so what I mean by that is, as a tank, there's a lot of boss fights that I'm walking up to as Blood DK right now, where I'm getting hit and I'm like, basically dying every single time. I'm taking these hits and they're gnarly, they're massive hits, especially on tyrannical weeks. It's wild. And maybe there's things I just haven't figured out on these dungeons. I'm sure as I learn more, but also lots of nerfs have been going out to these dungeons. So Blizzard is aware of this problem. They did nerf tanks, right? So it's not coincidental. Like, they did nerf tanks. They did make us weaker. I can't heal as much, right? I used to not care about these huge hits when I could like heal most of it right away with a single hit. I can't do that anymore. And so what's happening is you're taking the role of tank and you're taking the role of healer. The two roles that most players don't want to play. I love being a tank. Tanking is so fun to me, right? Compared to DPS. But the problem is tanks and healers get the most repercussion if they don't succeed at their role, right? More than a DPS would, right? You have 3 DPSs, so if one goes down, you have 2 more to carry. It's not optimal, but it works, like, right? But your tank goes down, and then everybody just starts dying, right? Your healer goes down, and everybody starts dying. And so they took the 2 roles that are the most likely to be stressed out, and they made their roles more stressful. And I don't know why Blizzard keeps doing that. I have theories, but I don't know. I can't fully say for sure. Why does Blizzard keep looking at the 2 lowest played roles, look at how stressful they are for players, and go, we don't want to make them fun. We want to make them more stressful.
We want to make them worse,
right? Like if you look at DPS and by the way, DPS have responsibilities, right? They have responsibilities they have to take care of. A well-oiled group, everybody's got responsibilities that they're handling. But for DPS, their main priority is I got to get my rotation in. I got to adapt to the environment around me to pull off as much damage as I possibly can and be as effective as I can and be critical. And that's exciting. For a tank, it's I don't want to wipe the group. I don't want to wipe the group. For a healer, it's I don't want to wipe the group. I don't want to wipe the group, right? And so like you're taking these naturally stressful roles. Healers, we talked about tank a bunch, but healer's a great example of, and I could scream about this one forever. But the DPS healer meta was a better meta for healers because what the DPS healer meta was healers would have downtime while they're healing, right? They're healing, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I don't really need to top off the last 5% of everybody. We can let their health drop a little bit before I start using my mana again to push it back up. And so now they're just sitting there, right? And all of a sudden, some groups are like, well, if you're not gonna, if you're not doing anything, you want to just, I don't know, throw a couple fireballs or something. I don't know, monks, okay, right? Like you do a little damage, right? I know on my shaman, I think I had like chain lightning and flame shock and whatever, just like all my first 3 easy to grab macros. So it was always like natural for me to just do DPS in between my healing. And what happened was, I think a lot of healers started getting into as they started pushing keys higher. Right, groups started expecting more and more damage because they needed that damage in order to be able to time the key. It was just helpful, and so a lot of healers then turned around and went like, "No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do any damage. I just want to heal." And the problem is what they actually want, what the healer really wanted, and they didn't know they wanted, is they really wanted to just go back down a couple levels. They didn't really want to be pushing higher. They were actually stepping out of where they were comfortable. If they want to just heal, then do it in the dungeon where, the damage doesn't matter, right? But instead, they cried about needing to only heal and do nothing but healing, and that they shouldn't be doing any damage. And so Blizzard then turns around and goes, hey, healers are asking for it. And they turn around and they make healing harder, because the only way to stop healers from doing damage is to make them have to heal more. And I don't think they were asking to heal more. I think they were just asking not to do damage, if that makes sense. And so,
that's kind of a hot take,
right? And so now healing is way more stressful. Tanking is way more stressful. Dungeons overall as a whole are harder. Now the one benefit though, again, the Xal'atath affixes are great. What's this week's one where like the ghost shows up, and you have to burn the ghost of Xal'atath down? That's awesome. I like the one where you have to interrupt the orbs. I don't love the one where you have to grab the orbs, but it's not the end of the world. It just kind of gets a little funky with some mechanics occasionally. But overall, I like Kiss Curse affixes that are either positive or negative depending on how you respond to them.
Yeah. No, I do like the Xal'atath affixes. Sorry, brain fart. But I'm not a huge fan of this week's one, just because I feel like the reward for it is like not that great. It's not bad.
No, but it's also easy, right? You just like
it is a lot
cleave her
easier.
down. Grab a monk. By the way, every affix is a monk affix. This is what I've realized. Every single affix is a monk affix. Yeah, because monks can touch a death. That's
this
week's affix, right? Because it's all shields, so they can touch a death it. The orbs, dude, just Tiger's Lust and run around, do some rolls. I don't know, pick up all the orbs, right? Like easy peasy. And then for the one where you have to interrupt the orbs, if you just place a good Ring of Peace, it will grab most of them, if not all of them. And the nice thing with the Ring of Peace is because it lasts a while, you don't have to wait for all the orbs to drop. You can just drop it pretty quickly, and any orbs that follow through and continue to drop will also be eliminated.
Yeah, no,
So every week is a monk affix.
Oh my gosh.
Are there going to be more than the 3, or do you know anything about the upcoming affixes? Or
if I remember from my beta testing, those were the only 3 that we tested. Okay. Yep. That's
interesting. Yeah, I personally, I think I like this week's because it's kind of ignorable. Like it's not crazy. But I think with Kiss Curse, I don't know. I don't think it should be that punishing, and I think that you should just get a benefit, and then that would be that. I really don't think they need to make the dungeons more difficult. They're already riddled with spells and things going off and mechanics. They're plenty. Just enough to maybe have me think about, oh, should I hold my CDs? Yep. Because Xal'atath hasn't come up, and I'll get this big buff, and then I'll have a huge damage burst. That's plenty for what we need to do. But that that's good. I have to think about it. Maybe it's I'm making a decision that's all good.
I do think they should maybe nerf how much they're empowering enemies right now. Because what is it on the orbs and stuff? It's 10% per orb missed or whatever.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
That bit's wild.
Yeah, curse shouldn't be too strong, right? No. Do you guys remember season 1 of Dragonflight? I think that was the last season.
Radagast,
the storm
one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that. The curse was way too aggressive. The kiss was not good. We flip it. Yeah. We flip it, right?
Yeah, and that one was weird because you were trying to juice out every little bit of it, but then you were heavy risking
and it
failing.
Required a weak aura. It was just the worst of all possible worlds. Yeah, I think they've done a better job with this one, and I think people did not like affixes before, and at least they're willing to tolerate them now. I know there are some that don't line up with the way that the fights work. I've heard complaints about that, but I think that can be improved. I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with them.
No, I think that can be improved on. I think these affixes feel much more like seasonal affixes than they do traditional affixes.
Yeah, especially and I think that's good. I think traditional affixes were not good.
Yeah, absolutely. Although you know what I do miss, and I would not complain if they brought it back. What was the affix season 4 of Shadowlands where you just had to go find the Dreadlords hiding around?
Wasn't that seasonal? That was the seasonal.
That was the seasonal one. It was just free haste. It was just so good.
Yeah, Shadowlands had a couple good. The first one was also a decent Kiss Curse one where they had the blob thing you killed and you got a big thing. Yeah, I don't know. They've done some good. Yeah, I think they need to do those and bring those into the rotation. And that's good.
Yeah, I'm just glad because again, the days of bursting explosives when you would just have to have your healer running around dealing with explosives the whole time.
Yeah, that's another thing that you actually mentioned about when the healer is kind of a DPS role, they're also responsible for things that are things like that, explosives, right? It was always oh, healer has to interrupt because they're not really doing anything. And I think that part of I'm not saying it was the right decision, but part of the reason that they've tried to make healers more difficult is so that's maybe not their expectation. Is they just want to heal. They're too busy, they don't want to go and interrupt all these orbs.
What was it the last season, or no, it wasn't the last season of Dragonflight. It was one of the ones that they added where it was literally a healer affix, the one where you had to heal the ghost or
they had a couple healer affixes. Poison. Yeah.
That was literally healer affix. They're oh, healers, you're not enjoying the game. Actually, we're going to make it so you have to do one more thing.
Yeah. I feel that only exists in the world where healing is easy. And in this world where healing is hard, they won't throw these affixes at you. Right.
No, they can't. I just used to bring a shaman back then for poison cleanse totem.
Any shaman?
Yeah, any shaman that talented into poison cleanse, because they would when those affixes would pop up, they should throw the tome down, and the tome would just handle both of them.
Yeah, but remember, DPS shaman and Dragonflight were booty. They were bad.
That's true. They weren't. I mean, yeah.
Enhancement. Yeah, I don't think it was. I think it was okay. Season 1. It was very Gamba, from what I remember.
Oh yeah.
Very Gamba. I don't like Gamba specs.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I just feel like overall, back to the I think the intro of this topic and how we kind of started talking about it originally. I think that we're in this weird spot with Mythic Plus right now where it doesn't feel as fun as we want it to be. And as players, it's hard to tell, are we not having fun because we're getting bored of it? Or are we not having fun because we're not feeling enticed to do it because we get better rewards from easier content? Or, right, we go into a dungeon and it's just so punishing. And it's not even punishing in a good way, just punishing in like this felt gross kind of way. That the drive to do it just isn't there.
It's definitely not there right now, and that's, I think you hit the nail on the head. I just think delves are. I mean, I could literally run like 2 hours worth of delves and probably get, maybe 6 in.
Yeah.
Maybe, that might be a push, maybe 3 hours and get my full vault slots of 616s. Like there's no way you're getting 3 vault slots of M plus in 3 hours. No way.
Yeah. Now on the trade side, though, on the flip side of that, I will say I have never walked out of a delve being like, wow, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of fair.
I agree. But that's the problem, right? Like, you're doing the delves because like it gives you the best gear for the easiest thing, but they're also not like fun.
Yep.
Like I think when like delves were pitched, it was like, oh, this is for like solo players and like you won't have to do them if you don't want to. This won't be for hard. But now it's like, well, for solo players and like normal players, like, maybe like regular heroic Andes, like delves are just way better gear for the investment as Mythic Plus. Like, why would you do Mythic Plus if you can just will eventually be 616 or higher just from delves, like
Absolutely.
in like probably like 3 or 4 weeks, right?
Yeah. I think that's just the thing you got to work around with the delves is, again, it's just the gameplay, and I know people who love them. So we definitely have listeners who love doing delves, and if you love delves, do them, have fun. Like they're there for you. They just don't necessarily maybe meet what I enjoy.
Yeah, I think they do. They fill a really good role. Like they are fun content for solo people, and like it's awesome that they exist. And I think that they give good gear is awesome. I really think it's the Mythic Plus alignment that's wrong. Like Mythic Plus should give easier, like higher rewards at lower tiers. I think that's pretty much like
in the vault.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, like I shouldn't have to choose. Like, oh, do I want to torture myself at Mythic Plus in pugging, or do I want to do like 8 tier 8 delves? Yeah. It's like, I'm going to make one choice, right? It should be comparable or maybe like a little bit more difficult for Mythic Plus, right?
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be like the discrepancy is too high.
Yeah. Did you guys see that they made an announcement for, sorry, I'm kind of changing topics because I saw it and I'm thinking about it now. They made an announcement for the anniversary raid that they're doing, Blackrock Depths, that there's going to be like a bullion-like system for it. So you'll be able to, or dinars, if you remember that from Shadowlands. So you'll be able to, so you'll be able to pick a few pieces of gear that you want from that.
That's interesting.
Do we know what tier?
Well,
or like what track?
Yeah, so I'm guessing around probably heroic.
Really? So you think it'll be hero track gear?
Well, because they're only doing normal and heroic difficulties for the raid.
Well, yeah.
Maybe but, LFR. I don't know about LFR though.
There's some pretty good pieces in there, and just getting like instant access to them.
Yeah,
that could be it could be interesting.
And what will be really cool too, and I'm curious to see, is Blizzard tends to, when they do these like special event raids or these special event things. And we kind of made the mistake. I think we made a mistake with Mop Remix, where we went to Mop Remix. Like, yeah, that's going to be our raiding experience for the season now, because that's what everybody wants to do. And then we did like 2 Mop Remix raids, and we just went, oh, this is kind of lame. Like, it was just a farm session, right? Like, there's no, like, nobody was doing any mechanics. So it's just like, we're just speedrunning to farm.
Steamroll this.
And so there is that question. I know we've been talking about with the officers of our guild of like, okay, when this comes out, what is the plan? And I think right now our plan for it is actually for it not to be anywhere near our primary raid experience, but rather to just be like what we call our Astra Academy, or like our easier raid nights that we use to kind of coach players and build them up and get players into raiding. We'd probably just switch to that, just do something new and fun for a month or so. But what do you think? Do you guys think that's going to be a fun experience? Do you think it's going to be difficult at all? Do you think they're going to tune it up a little bit harder than normal heroic would be, just to try and compensate for where people's gear is at? Or do you think it's going to feel maybe too easy, whether because our gear is already out gearing heroic rating, or because they just want a anniversary event to feel simple?
I think it'll be on the easier side. Probably not like Mop Remix, but probably less hard than current heroic rating. It probably will be pretty chill. I can't imagine, I can't imagine they're going to invest as heavily into like the mechanics as a normal raid, right? They're probably just going to like adjust what the mechanics of the time were and maybe add a few more. And it's BRD, so like I'm not too worried about it. Like I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting and fun, but probably like once or twice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of our assumptions. Like we're gonna get in there a couple times, maybe 3 times we'll do it. And then that's it, right? Like we've done it. If anybody else wants to, they can go pug it. And people will, right? They'll want the rewards. I don't know exactly how you get all the rewards. I know there's different tracks for picking up coins and different things to unlock the transmogs and whatnot. But I am certain people will probably want those tier sets.
Yeah, what is the tier set they're doing? Is it tier 2 or
I think it's
tier 1?
Tier 2. I think it's tier 2. Yeah.
Okay. Tier 2 is an interesting set.
Yeah, they couldn't do tier 1 because they just weren't good enough at designing back then, so they take tier 2.
Tier 1's nostalgic, man. It's good stuff. Tier 2, they're remastering it, right?
Yep.
Like
so like all like 3D models and stuff. So like a lot of the outfits, things that were just a pattern on the outfit are now like actual like 3D pieces of the outfit, which will be really cool.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, all the early tiers are like, they're very good. They have lots of character and class theme to them. I'm excited for that.
Of course, with speaking of rating, Race World First is over. I think in the last podcast episode that we recorded, they were at 3% when we ended the podcast. Yeah. And I think a few hours later, Liquid ended up winning. And so, of course, as always, immediately after Race to World First ends, Blizzard comes out and they're like, all right, time for some tuning changes. Did you guys see the massive list of changes going on? And some of them are got reversed. I think like Holy Pally was going to get some serious nerfs, and then they undid that and buffed it instead.
The community feedback was insane because Holy Pally, from my understanding, is not in a good spot at all. No. So the nerfs felt very tone deaf.
Yeah. And not only they reversed the nerf, and I think they added a buff. I think Dawnlight was increased by 30%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think I don't know about the comp, but I think they were underrepresented. And from what I've heard, it's not fun to play. Yeah, but that's only like what I've heard. They're just not having a good time right now.
No,
they're not Prez Evoker.
No, not Prez.
Oh my god,
nobody is Prez Evoker.
Dude, I remember Prez Evoker. I remember hearing Growl talk about playing Prez like before the expansion came out. I think it was just during the like opening weeks before dungeons really opened up and raid opened up. I remember talking about it, and everybody's like, "Why are you doing Prez?" And they were like listing all the other healers that can be better. And I just think it's so funny now watching everybody turn around and be like, "Nah, it's Prez."
You knew.
If only you knew.
If only you knew the next best healer is only half as much HPS. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that was an extreme, but still, like, it's kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. How off the tuning was for that.
Yeah, I think too, though, right? Like, it's fascinating because sometimes, when you're really familiar with how a role works or how a class works, you can see things and you can understand like the dynamics of how it engages with a group. Maybe in ways that are more than just like, oh, hey, look, this chart says this guy does the most.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, double is too much, right? But yeah, I'm sure there is more to it than just them being like way higher.
Yeah. I think one of the things we're seeing a lot of right now, and it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, but a lot of hero talents, I think they're trying to compensate.
Yeah.
Right, so like as a Blood DK, I see they're constantly trying to buff Sand Lane, and you can tell they're trying to do it carefully, where they don't overdo it, and then next thing you know, like, it's just goated, and you're never going to touch Deathbringer ever again. But it is definitely early season. Do you think they'll ever really be able to get a solid balance on hero talent? Because right now, I think just about everybody has one significantly better hero talent.
I think they will try. I think they'll probably do better. So what I think they're trying to do is have like, like if you are a Blood DK, you should go to the fight, like certain fights with this spec and certain fights with this spec. If you're a warrior, there's like 4 basic specs now in DPS, and for you should want to go to each, like for Mythic Plus, you should want to do this. For raid, 2 target, you should want to do this. I think they are approaching more of that, at least with how I'm seeing warrior do it. I kind of dislike how aggressively they're doing it in the middle of the season, because you learn a rotation and you've committed to that, and then everything gets thrown away 3 weeks in the season. You have to learn something completely different. I think those should be reserved for 0.5 patches, in my opinion, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I think you almost just hit it on the head. Like, my personal opinion, I think they need to make those bigger changes, like when season 2 gets announced or something like that. I think that would make almost things feel like a little better. Like, hey, Sand Lane is garbage for Blood and Unholy right now, but hey, we're gonna like buff it come season 2, and it's gonna be like the better one to run. So personally, I think that is what they should do. Whether they do that, I don't know. I think that makes more sense. I think it would make things a little less stale going in between seasons. I mean, it's not like they're not changing enough, but I think that adds like almost an additional factor. Like, hey, you almost have to relearn how to play your class, right?
Yeah, and I think that's fun in between seasons. I don't think it's really that fun at the cadence that they're doing it. Like right now, like before I read the warrior patch notes, and it was like, like Slayer is now no longer Bismuth. I was like, it's probably not going to be, based on sense. It's like, I have to learn like my rotation over, kind of, it's like week 3.
Yeah, that sucks. Like, you're in the middle of like a heroic or like myth prog, and then like 1 week later, like, hey, I used to be really good, but now I don't even know how to play my class.
So you guys are you guys saying that you don't want, like, in the middle of a season, a new spec to be released and like 3 specs to be completely reworked, like from the ground up?
I honestly think 0.5 is fine. I think the current cadence is too much, though. Like it's I think honestly you could do because I think they're trying to do tuning. I think they're like, these classes are too strong, I want to tune them, and that's fine too. But like, I don't know if they should like severely impact rotations this early. I don't know. It just seems like too much for me. Maybe I'm just crying about it because my class is like really impacted.
No,
that's true. That's true. You're probably impacted more than anybody else.
I mean, it's kind of up in the air. From what I've seen, it's like my Mythic Plus will no longer be Slayer. It'll be Mountain, which no one has ever played ever for any reason. So it was like 15% worse, and now it's like simming at like minus 0.7. But for some reason, it's still better Mythic Plus or something like that. I don't know. But
interesting.
But yeah, so like it does impact me a little bit more than maybe some people, but I don't know.
Yeah,
but I know there are classes that are impacted as well beyond me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, though. And I can see the frustration, absolutely, that you would be learning a spec, you're learning a class, you're doing well in dungeons, and then all of a sudden you log in tomorrow and you're like, crap. Like, everything I've been working hard at, like, doing, I now can't keep up with, right? Like, I'm going into raid, and I'm just not... Now all of a sudden my raid leader's going like, hey, man, dude, you just dropped like 10 parses. What's going on?
Yeah. It's also like, I feel like a bit much, and like maybe this is just kind of like a DPS problem when you have like multiple specs, but now it's not just, okay, I'm a warrior, I need to learn arms and fury, and then there are like slight talent things in between. It's like, now it's arms and fury, and the talent differences between the hero classes are significant enough that my rotation changes a lot. So now I need to know like 4 specs to be optimal, and 4 specs is like kind of a lot to like really want to learn and like have the motivation. Like I'm I want to do it, I'm going to do it, but it feels like a bit much to have them all so viable. It's like cool, but also like, I don't know, man, like maybe not like ideal for me. I don't know.
That makes sense.
It's fascinating you bring that point up because in my mind, ideally, the ideal world would be that every like spec, every spec has multiple builds that are super good, super viable, right? And that it gives people the opportunity to be creative in how they come up with their specs, to be thoughtful, and to build specs based on how they enjoy playing the game. However, the nature of World of Warcraft being that it is one game, one MMO that actually has really good end game content. Like WoW's end game content is good and difficult at times. And so I do think because people want to challenge themselves a lot on the end game content and push as far as they can into it, whether it's her Mythic rating or pushing really high in M+ dungeons, you run into the challenge of being like, okay, yeah, they're all viable, but now them all being viable means that I'm to min max to get the absolute most out of it. I have to switch which spec I'm doing for almost every single piece of content, and I'm sure there's times where you're switching up your talents just for a specific dungeon, even.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly can be the case, and I think it's just part of it is like I feel like the thing I said earlier, where it was like, you know, not only are the specs geared towards like specific niches, but the sub spec of the hero talents are niche as well.
Yeah.
So like, you know, Mountain Thing for M+, but Fury for the way the raid encounters are for multi-target, but Arms for 2-target cleave and single target. It's just like, it's just very like, the other ones are it's not like they're all balanced evenly across all of them. It's like the other ones are extremely suboptimal.
Yeah.
So you like almost feel like you have to learn, like you can't play Fury single target.
I
like
see what you're saying.
It's not viable.
I
So
see what you're saying,
it's not like a choice. It's like to do good on single target damage, I have to play this other spec. So I have to learn it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense, right? It's less about just like, oh, they're all good options, so I have to do all of them. You're saying like, no, they actually only excel at one very specific thing. And so I don't have anything across the board. Even just a split of like single target and multi-target would be nice, and nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, I mean, like part of that is kind of min-maxy, but like, but there are, I feel like they're very leaning towards like hero talents are niche, and like they will be like, the fights are so diverse that like you will want to bring them, you will very much want to learn them to be optimal. It's not like a small difference. It's like a decent enough difference where you'll feel bad if you don't do it, right?
Yeah, and that makes sense because hero talents aren't really like, the only choice you're making on hero talents truly is just picking which one you want, right? Because once you're in there, they give you a couple like AB options where you can pick between two. But even then, it's small differences. The real question is like, are you going to be a Deathbringer or a Sand Lane? Once you pick that, you're getting almost the whole tree instantly.
Yeah, which I think is good, right? They didn't go crazy with the changes, but a lot of them are like, but you know, I don't know. Part of it is like they're subtly enough different that your rotation is like kind of messed up, right? Like I don't know. It's still hard to kind of keep track of for me. Part of it I think is because it's still new for me. So I don't know. I think maybe you ask me like in like a month or something, but maybe I'll have a completely different tune.
Maybe we'll have to ask you then and find out. All right, so change of direction as we're kind of slowly starting to run out of time for tonight's recording. But we got our tip of the day, and I believe Overbugg that I gave you a heads up on that. So hopefully you had a minute. I didn't give you much heads up though. It was kind of last minute. So, Chicken, do you want to share your tip first for this week? It looks like you got something interesting.
Sure. So, one thing I want to share about your tip of the day is what you should do is go in to your traveler's log and complete all your tasks so that you can get the poser mount and you can feel good about yourself.
Wait, what's the poser mount?
Dad, this is a joke. Remember, this was definitely something that we said we were going to talk about this week, and we both forgot. And I literally forgot until like 5 minutes ago.
Oh yeah, no, I've completely forgotten. Wow.
The mount that you get from doing the adventure guide for October.
Oh, I thought the
You talking
October
about the hand, or is it something else?
It's the jellyfish from Zereth Mortis.
Oh, you're right. The Zereth Mortis. Oh, okay, now I get it.
Interesting. Okay.
We'll have to touch on that next week. That is too long of a topic to even bring up at this point.
Chicken worked his butt off to actually get the jellyfish mount from Zereth Mortis, and now there's like a slight recolor in the trading post.
I'm gonna go pick it up right now.
Yeah, go pick it up right now
immediately.
Yeah, it's oh my goodness. But okay, to the real tip. So I figured this out this week. I think it's a good tip. You know, we're talking about Mythic Plus being a little bit harder and how that kind of works. So the tip that I have for this week has to do with potions and just the cooldowns of potions in the different tracks. So if you weren't aware, there is actually 2. There might be 3. Is there 3 tracks? Do you guys know?
I don't know.
I think there's definitely 2. There's like a healing mana track, and then there's like a strength track, right?
Okay.
That are on different tracks. So you can take a healing potion every 5 minutes, and then you can take like a strength potion every 5 minutes.
Okay,
Like
there's probably like an agility one too. It's probably like intellect.
Oh, are
strength,
you
agility.
just talking about like? Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, you can take like your stats, like your
yeah.
damage
That's
one,
what I meant.
and you
Yeah,
can take
stats
your
potion.
healing one. Yeah.
You have like a stats potion.
The
that
stats
you
are
can
usually
take.
like they might have like a similar 5-minute CD, but you can usually pop like 2 stats ones in a fight, and same with healing, right? But there are different CDs.
Yeah, every 5 minutes you get like 30 seconds of like some stat, like 2,500 of some stat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the tip for this week is actually the healing potions. What are they? Alagari or whatever, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think everything is like Algari or whatever right now.
Yeah. The actual healing pot is on a different track from what the other healing pot is the Cave Dweller's Delight, that actually gives you slightly less healing, but it also gives you mana.
Okay.
If you're not running a mana class, you can still take this, but that Cave Dweller's Delight is actually on the stat bonus track. So you can actually take the health pot for 3 million health, as well as the Cave Dweller's Delight, literally right after it, for like 2.5 million health, like not even like that much difference.
Oh dang! He's got like that double.
They're
pot
literally
mana.
on different tracks, so you could get smashed in the face, take your health pot, get smashed in the face again, take your Cave Dweller's Delight, and you're still alive. And I personally think you being alive means a lot more than you being dead and getting 30 seconds worth of strength, right? Or 30 seconds worth of like mastery or whatever. So I think that's a big tip, especially with just how hard M+ is. Like, technically right now you have the ability to take 2 like 5-minute cooldown health pots. I think that's pretty big.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm kind of surprised that exists.
Yeah,
I wonder if that exists partially to help people with delves as well, especially the classes that can't survive very well.
I believe it.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, it's called the Cave Dweller's Delight.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, Overbugg, what you got for the tip today?
All right, well, I didn't have too much time, but and it's going to be kind of specific. But my tip is, if you're a warrior, look into Mountain Thane. Nobody has ever touched that. You will not find a single Wahad guide on it yet, but you should look into it because they are juicing it, and odds are it will be best for Mythic Plus at some point, if it isn't by the time that the class tuning has come out. It is a very different rotation. People say that they like it more, so I'm actually pretty excited to play it.
Yeah.
But I've never seen anybody play it, so have some fun. Maybe pick it up and like take a look and see if you like it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good tip. How's it going to be looking for raid? Because I got a warrior I want to work on.
I think it's unlikely to be for raid, because the thing about the raid profile, Fury. This is why Fury is getting nerfed to the ground, is because all the fights are designed with like AOE at our cooldowns, and we have like the best burst AOE on our cooldowns. And Fury is like, Slayer is still going to be that. Yeah. Mountain Thane will be better sustain, which helps in Mythic Plus. It would be better if we were doing more damage. So odds are it will probably be your Mythic Plus one. It probably will not be your raid one. Slayer will probably still be raid.
All right. Now,
unless they nerf it more.
I do want to clarify. The tip of the day is not a competition, right? It's not about who has the best tip or the most helpful tip.
Oh my God.
I will say though, if it was a competition, I would be winning this one. All right, I would be winning this one. So I just want to point that out there. Here's my tip of the day, right? And this will listen. Your groups are gonna love you for this. If you need to get to Halifal and you're hanging out in Dornegal and you're like, man, I don't want to fly all the way over there. That's such a pain in the butt. Well, guess what? Queue up for a follower dungeon in Dawnbreaker, and then just walk over to. There should be an NPC that you talk to, and they'll just like teleport you back out. And there you go. Now you're in Halifal.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep. So
do you queue up for follower dungeons while you're in party?
Well, you know, drop
party. Gotcha.
Drop party, drop
gotcha.
party, and then go over there.
Okay,
but
cool.
You know,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you know, I've never needed to use a follower dungeon before until this, right? Until I learned the follower dungeon shortcut, and now all of a sudden, right, I gotta go, you know, farm some wax, bam, in Halifall, right then, right there. Actually, I haven't done that. I always love those things like before dungeons come out, like before the season actually starts, where like you're farming the most random crap in the world, and then all of a sudden dungeons come out or raid comes out, and you're like, I'm done. I'm never touching that again.
Yeah, I did. Was the wax the stuff that people got banned for, or was that something else?
No, so the ban was the wax. The wax was I was farming that because it gave me Valor Stones, I think.
Oh, that was the Valor Stones, not the rep. Gotcha.
No, and then the rep was in Kahet, I think is the name of the zone. I always get that wrong. Halifall is the only zone that matters. I love Halifall. And Kahet, though, they found that you could earn like extra rep if you were like doing it at the same time as like other accounts that you had. If you're like multi-boxing.
Yeah, the multi-boxing. Yep.
But multi-boxing from the same account, right? So like had to be on the same BNet account, but maybe different copies of WoW.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's one of those things where like I don't know. I heard about everybody getting banned, and it's an old topic. It's over now, but I like there's no part of me that was like, oh, I feel so bad, right? Like the moment I heard, oh yeah, I was playing multiple accounts at the same time, and I know it's technically legal now, like it's okay. Blizzard's giving it the thumbs up, but that like I just couldn't feel bad. Like I just was like, okay.
Yeah, multi-boxing is a plague. It should not exist, but
no.
Different topic.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic. We could save that one. We could save that one for another day. But Overbugg, dude, I just want to say thank you so much, man, for jumping on here, chat with us. I've known you for a while now. I do have to laugh because I think every weekend you and Chicken are probably like 20 feet from each other and have never met before. So one of these days, I'll actually properly introduce the two of you, and it'll be great. In person. But thank you so much for coming in, giving your insight. I'm not sure if you do, but I want to offer if you have any like social media profiles or content locations that you would love people to check out that you work on, whether it's Twitch streaming, YouTube, etc. Feel free to plug yourself. If not, I'm sure we'll probably have you on again more in the future just to talk about things.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's great to be on. It was a lot of fun. I love talking WoW. Not the biggest like social media like thing right now. I had a Twitch at one point, but you know, if anybody's looking for like some maybe like Mythic raids, you know, maybe hit me up. I am looking for a guild at the moment, so you know that will be my plug.
Perfect. That's right. I'll have to introduce you to my buddy Capo. We gotta get him on. He's just been super busy. I think they're raiding like 5 nights a week or something.
That's awesome.
He was originally going to record with us, I think yesterday, and then shortly before his guild was like, oh dude, we can't do it. We're getting some like paid runs for dungeons, and they were like running people through +12s.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
I'm sitting there like, how on earth is this even possible? What the heck's going on? So I'll have to introduce you to you guys. We get along well.
Yeah, that's good, man.
All right. Guys, everybody, thank you so much for watching. A couple quick plugs. If you're listening on a platform that allows you to rate the episode, please rate the episode, rate the podcast 5 stars or whatever it lets you do, and leave a comment as well. I love reading the comments. If we got questions that are coming through, we'd love to answer those on the podcast as well. The best place to send questions, where we will for sure see them, is in our Discord. There's a link down in the description. All you have to do is go to the questions for the pod channel and drop them in there. We don't have any listener questions this week, but hopefully we'll have some next week. So if you have anything on your mind, whether it's questions about lore, maybe you want to share your theories about what would make WoW better in the future, or ask us our thoughts on your ideas, whatever it is, drop them in the questions for the pod channel for us to discuss next week. And I think that's everything for people to know. I'm still getting used to doing these endings here. I don't like saying goodbye, but Chicken, why don't you outro us?
See ya.